She was on the Isle of Wight. She was in an orphanage.
Yes.
For about 3 years.
Yes.
And she was working in a hotel, and I don't know whether she was actually living in the hotel, but she told me one night when we were alone together, one men went out and got the baby's head. And she told me about it. She hadn't told me before. And she said that his wife looked after her, took her in. Must have been an angel.
Yeah, wasn't she?
Yeah.
But who was the father? Do we know? Who do you think the father was?
The father? No, I think he was the husband. Either the wife worked at the hotel, and it was her husband, or they both worked. Or he did. I don't know. If he worked then, he'd met Anna there, obviously. And she got a bit upset, and she was telling me, didn't like to press it.
No.
And my father didn't know. He always thought he was his cousin.
Right.
And then she gradually came out and told him that it was her. And he said, I wondered why every Christmas she used to send him a present.
That special present, yeah.
Yes. Her husband married her, but he didn't want the baby. I think
The husband married...
Who got married?
Grandad Gower.
Grandad Gower.
Well, Fred was older than Dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I imagine that she wasn't married when she had the baby.
That's right, yeah, that's right.
And so he said he wanted to marry her, but it's no life taking a baby around in the army.
No, that's right. And the person who... Did you know Mrs. Newton,
Yes.
who brought up Fred?
Yeah.
And her...
I don't know the daughter. I only remember going around there before we were married.
Yes, yeah.
I remember going around there and seeing all the children.
Yes.
I was in my element then.
So you remember her. So her husband was Frederick Herbert Newton.
Yes.
So you don't think... Did you ever meet him?
Did I what?
Ever meet Mrs. Newton's husband?
Yes.
Frederick Herbert Newton?
Yes.
But he wasn't the father, you don't think?
No, whose father?
He wasn't the father of Fred.
Fred's father.
Oh no, I thought
'Cause you
Fred
said-
was the husband.
No, you know when Nana had Fred first, outside marriage, and she was working in a house or hotel,
Yes.
right? The Newtons, it wasn't Mr. Newton who
He wasn't
was the
father,
father.
no.
No,
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
No.
you don't think he was?
No, she was in a. He was in a. No, he was in an orphanage. I don't know the name of it.
Who was in the orphanage though? What the?
Anna Gower was in an orphanage.
Yeah,
And
she came out.
And her brother Fred.
Yeah.
There's too many Freds.
Yes.
And they came out, and when she left the orphanage, she went to work on the Isle of Wight. And that, I think, is when she had the baby.
Well,
After
she met
left the
Grandad on the Isle of Wight, didn't she?
what?
She met Grandad on the Isle of Wight
Yes.
after she'd had the baby.
So it looked like she
Yes.
had the baby when she was in Ipswich, because that's where the birth certificate is, and she lived in Little Berkeley Street in Ipswich. And we think maybe she worked in service in Ipswich, maybe in a big
Yes,
stately
she
home
would do,
there.
Because I don't think she knew anything.
Yes.
They originally came from the West Country,
Yeah.
didn't they?
So we thought she worked in service, maybe in a big stately home, sort of like the Moat House or something like this, I think it was
it
called.
was somewhere where she was very respectful to the doctors.
Yeah.
She was called everybody's sir if they were doctor or headmaster or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so I think she'd have been frightened to say no, if you like,
Yeah.
because they were very much down there.
In that sort of
in
place,
those
yeah.
days.
But you had the sort of memory that she'd said she'd worked in a hotel.
Yes, she used to work in a hotel. I know that
Yeah.
because she told me she saw the Titanic go past.
Oh, right.
Just,
I think she worked in the Isle of Wight in a hotel.
yes, that's
Did
right.
she?
No, she met Grandad,
okay.
but before then she would have had Fred when she was in Ipswich. She must have worked in Ipswich for a little while.
I don't know anything about that.
That piece isn't all about.
Sorry.
But that's okay. No, but she did tell you it was was maybe her boss,
He was a boss or officer of some sort.
some kind of boss.
Yes, she sounded like it when she was telling me.
Yeah.
She was distressed when she was telling
Course.
me.
And
I told her
then-
not to go on, but
And then the boss took him in, took the baby in.
took the baby in and spoke to his wife, and they took her and the baby.
And
She
then
was in there before she had the baby. And the wife looked after her when she had the baby. And
then they must have found a home with the Newtons then, do you
Yeah.
think?
yes, going back to Grandad's youth,
Mm.
he was also in an orphanage, and this lady came and got him out.
Uh-huh.
She used to go and visit them, and she always took a particular fancy and bought him little things, and
Yes.
she wanted to adopt him, but never got round to that. And so where they got the name from, I don't know.
Interesting, yeah.
But we always knew them as Newton,
Yes.
for Edna and me.
And then officially he was adopted. Yeah.
He was adopted by the
Mm.
Newtons eventually.
Oh,
Fred was.
Fred
Yeah.
was, yeah.
so that would have been his father then, wouldn't it? Is that-
Yeah, well,
Yeah. She obviously told you that that Dad had an older brother. She'd obviously had
That's right.
a baby
Yes,
before.
and she just told me that God, what was he now? He was her boss, I think, which I thought she said. I can't swear to that. But I thought she said it was her
So
boss, and she said he got him into trouble, and so he said not to worry. Don't worry about it too much. I'll get this sorted out.
Oh.
And then he spoke to his wife, and I don't know what happened then.
So they probably looked after her until she had the baby.
So she had to leave work after a certain time, obviously, and they kept her there, and fed her and kept her, and she helped about the house what she could. I can remember saying that, and then she had the baby. I can't remember what she said. She got upset about that time, and
Must have
she
been.
said we've always kept in touch. That's right. She said
always kept in touch.
Dad wanted us to get married, and he said that we didn't want to have any children because, for one thing, he was an RSM then, and he said if that gets about,
I suppose the subject came up again after she met Grandad, because they were getting married, and I don't know when Fred was adopted, whether he was just fostered at that first
he was
early
to start
point,
with,
He
yeah.
was adopted
and
at
whether
that
there
time.
was an opportunity or not, and so they probably, obviously, he stayed with the Newtons.
Yeah.
Who looked after him, but she must have.
She left after she'd had the baby, I think.
Yeah. And did you say that the boss talked about took him in and said, "We'll look
They
after
took
him"?
Yes, he said, you get your stuff packed when you're ready to leave here, and I'll take you home. My wife's going to look after you.
So yeah, so the wife looked after Annie,
Yes,
but the baby
and the baby.
and the baby.
Afterwards, after she had the baby, I think she was there at the birth,
Yes, really.
and then I'm trying to think if I'm thinking of another time when she was telling me about the twins. No, it was later. Because she had twins, two lots of twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was the boss. So in your memory, that it was the boss who got her into trouble.
Yes.
But the boss then said, "We'll take care of this."
Yes.
But did you say that the boss's wife took the baby in, or just looked after Annie at that time?
Well, she lived there with them.
Lived there with them.
Yes.
So they kind of lived together
Yes.
for a while.
Well, she was like a servant would be.
Oh, so you lived there as a servant, yes.
Yes.
And your memory is that there was a hotel she was talking about.
She told me she was working, I thought she said a hotel at the time,
Yeah.
but she has told me other stories of when she was
In other
working
places.
and how Grandad used to walk up and down outside the hotel, looking, hoping to catch a glimpse of her.
Yeah.
She was quite a pretty girl, wasn't she?
Yeah,
yes,
she
yeah.
was.
And then the others watched her walking off with him, and he had to chalk his cane or
Oh
something.
yes, that's right.
And she said
on
the other girl
belt,
said, "I
wasn't
won't
it?
go out with him. He makes you pick his cane up every time he drops it."
Oh, right.
So she said, "Well, he's got his it's his belt. That's right.
His belt had
to
black
buy,
on.
white blanco, is it, or something
Yeah.
they put on it, or to make it white
So who's
against
this?
the dark uniform."
They talk about Grandad.
Now this is Grandad
Yeah.
Gower now, yeah.
She stayed with them.
Mm.
Well, he told her she could stay with them until after she'd had the baby.
Till after she'd had the baby. And he also said, we'll sort this out.
Yes.
Ah, right. So that looks like what's happened, doesn't it? You didn't get any idea how well-to-do that boss was, did you?
No.
How posh they were.
No.
No, there was no
She
mention of
spoke
that.
of him in the same tone that she'd speak about the doctor.
The
or
doctor.
Anybody she thought was
Yes.
in the upper classes.
Yes, of that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
probably in the upper class in some way.
Yes.
But she didn't say,
No.
super rich or anything like this, or
Oh, no.
living in a big
No.
home or anything
No.
like this. Oh, well, thank you.
So I can't help him more, really.
No, that's